Now, proud record fell last night. Quite incredible record. Germany had not lost an away World Cup qualifier until last night. They defeated Slovakia.
Really?
52 games.
That's incredible.
Julian Nagelsmann, the coach, was not happy, hinting that he felt his players had lacked desire. Here to chat about that. And indeed, some comments from players coming from the Bundesliga into the Premier League in recent weeks is Raphael Honigstein, German football expert. Hi, Rafi.
Hello, boys.
That is a quite incredible record. I had no idea that was a first. I mean, what are the shockwaves like in Germany today?
It was, yeah, no longer is.
No.
Worse than that was the performance. People were scratching their head and wondering whether this was the worst ever performance from Germany under Nagelsmann, or the 2-0 defeat by Austria in November 2023 it was. It was really abject. And I think the qualifying group is such that Germany will still be okay, but on the evidence of this performance, there are so many problems, both in a collective sense and individually, that people were really shocked in the sense that Germany looked miles off. And this is after Nagelsmann promised that we're not going to the US to participate, we're going there to win not long ago, but we look as if we might not get there.
Wow.
The way we're playing.
What is the feeling then in Germany about the job that Nagelsmann is doing sort of broadly?
Well, up until yesterday, I think it was broadly positive because the Euros, even though it wasn't a success in terms of results, getting knocked out in the quarters is not something that Germany can be proud of, especially on home soil. But there was a real momentum. There was positivity. The team were well liked. The football was good. It was exciting. And since then, really, it's been treading water. They didn't play very well in the Nations League finals, where they lost both games to Portugal and France. And now this was supposed to be the new start and the restart and the start of the run-up to the World Cup. And again, it threw up so many questions individually in terms of the system, so many issues, so many problem areas that you don't even know where to begin. Nagelsmann, I think, chose kind of an easy way out by talking about mentality, something that resonates with people at home. You know, whenever England lose, the first thing people say is they don't want it enough. They don't fight hard enough for the shirt. It was all that kind of rhetoric. And some of the players agreed, but I think it's just scratching the surface. And it was the easy thing to say in many ways. There are quite big problems with this team.
There's been some very interesting stuff, and this might feed into it as well, the national team, about the Bundesliga. Players coming from there into the Premier League, looking a bit like it's a bit of a shock to the system, and B, admitting it and saying that, in this case of Šeško, it's a completely different standard.
Yeah, Vert said something quite similar, getting used to the sort of relentlessness, the intensity of it. And we look at the Bundesliga and feel it's a league of high quality, but maybe we just take for granted just how relentless the Premier League is, and there is a period of adaptation.
I think that's always been the case. I don't think that's anything new. You need to adjust. The refereeing is different. The space and time that you have, the physicality is different. I wouldn't say it's a million miles away from the Bundesliga, but of course it is a step up in quality. It's a bit like playing a Champions League or a Europa League game every single week, and that is something different, especially if you come from a club like Stuttgart or Leverkusen, who, despite their recent success, are not really used to playing at this level and playing a game that they have to win every single week. So it is a bit of a shock to the system. And I think what's different and what's I don't want to say a problem, but it's going to be a challenge for some of the new batch, if you will. They've gone to the Premier League quite early. It used to be that you had to be 25, 26. You were fully rounded. You were a very experienced player. At the peak of your powers, then you go to the Premier League and you're ready for it. And now these guys are 22. And in the case of Woltemade, he's had half a season at Bundesliga level. And now he's supposed to lead the attack for Newcastle and for Germany indeed. And he was very anonymous. And I think that is a really tall order. And if you combine that with a transfer fee, which of course is not their problem and not their fault, that suddenly transfer fee has exploded, and Voldemort is nearly as expensive as Harry Kane was 2 years ago, which is absolutely insane if you think about it. It puts him in a spotlight, in a very uncomfortable spot, I think.
I was going to ask you about Voldemort, because last night probably would have been the first time a lot of Newcastle fans had seen him play, and they would have thought, But to be fair, it wasn't a great team performance. But you're right, Raf. It's such a lot of responsibility, isn't it, for a young guy to come in and expect to lead the line in the Premier League. It's going to be tough. I'm sure you'll call on the Newcastle fans maybe to cut him a bit of slack and give him a bit of time.
They will have to, and the same is true of Šeško. You know, Šeško is 22 as well. And if he was the fully rounded, superb, sort of Lewandowski, Harry Kane type striker, he would have gone to Barcelona, he would have gone to Real Madrid. Bayern would have pushed really hard, but that wasn't the case. And you're buying the potential. You're buying the player that he might be in 2 or 3 years' time, especially with centre forward. It's one of my sort of theories that they tend to peak a little bit later. They tend to really come into their own when they're 25, 26, 27. You look only at Lewandowski at the age of 22, he was miles off the player that he is today, or that he used to be a couple of years ago. So I think it's really hard. And we saw with Rasmus Højlund how players can be eaten up by that expectation to lead the line for such a historic big club when they're not quite ready for it yet. So either you have to decide, okay, these guys are going to take a bit of betting in, or you say, no, we need the goal straight away. And then you have to, I think, spend money on different players. You have to pay on somebody who's ready now to score these goals. These guys, you look at the numbers, they haven't done it. So why would they do it all of a sudden in a league that is more difficult, or with teams that are struggling to score the same amount of goals that perhaps they would have scored elsewhere?
Interesting to see how Jackson goes for Bayern. I think
yeah,
well,
that
actually.
will be interesting. Just on Bayern, last 24 hours, Rafi, finally, there's been a few stories suggesting that Harry Kane wants to finish his time at Bayern at the end of this season and return to the Premier League. What have they been saying in Germany about that?
It's not a story that we've, I think, seen a lot of in Germany at the moment. It's no, I think, big secret that people in Germany don't expect Harry Kane to see out his career at Bayern necessarily. There was always a chance. I think Bayern are braced for the, shall we say, possibility that he will leave perhaps slightly earlier than his contract. His contract runs till 2027. So one way or the other, I think both he and the club need to take a view on this fairly soon. And the fact that they were pushing for somebody who can be both a backup and an understudy for Kane. They looked at Šeško, they looked at Voldemort, they ended up with Jackson with a obligation, which is kind of a soft obligation to buy. Suggests that Bayern, I think, are aware of the possibility that Kane might go in a year or two, and they need to plan for the future slightly. But at the same time, he is so good that anyone who comes in, and I would put Jackson firmly in that bracket, will have to play around Kane rather than really compete. There's absolutely no chance that Jackson will have the opportunity to displace Kane. He will have to play alongside him or ahead of him, or give Kane the occasional breather when he misses a game or two. But he is very much there to be the backup and maybe his eventual successor, but we're still quite far off that.
Thanks, Raf. Good to talk to you as always. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Raphael Honigstein there.
He wouldn't come back to Spurs, though, would he? I don't think so.
There's some talk about Manchester United, isn't there? I don't know if Tottenham have got first refusal.
That seems the most likely. But,
I've got no idea. I mean, obviously, a lot of family and their immediate family are still in London, but that wouldn't be a problem. They've gone and lived in Germany. So, but there we are. Our thanks to Raf there, getting us up to speed on everything that's going on in the world of German football.
Paul Hawksbee and Andy Jacobs, Monday to Friday afternoons, 1 till 4. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.